Hello and welcome to the Rockies Hockey Podcast. I'm RT. Welcome. This is episode 1 of this new podcast that I'm doing. So, for any of you, all of you here are new. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here as we talk about hockey and just everything that's going on around the hockey world. I'm a big Flames fan, so obviously this podcast will surround around my thoughts on the Calgary Flames and what they're up to. But again, I'll talk about things that are going on all around the National Hockey League and in the hockey world. So I'm so excited to get this started. Today, it's episode 1. A little bit unorthodox. We're starting mid-season. The trade deadline just finished a day ago as I'm recording this. So yeah, a little bit unusual, but I think I'm looking forward to doing this, and I think we can get this started. So, the topic for today, obviously, since the trade deadline has just passed, is going to be the trade deadline. Not really surprised. The 2022 NHL Trade Deadline saw some pretty big moves. Not everyone that we expected to get moved did get moved, but we did see some of the biggest trades happen at the deadline that were expected to happen. Some trades not expecting them to happen happened. Some trades that were expected to happen didn't happen. A lot of that turbulence, but it's just reviewing all those different trades. And so if you're looking at the agenda, I'm going to try to talk about every single NHL trade that happened for the trade deadline. So not every single one that happened throughout the year, such as I'm not going to be talking about the Hagel trade, but I'll be talking about more or less every trade that happened after the Tyler Toffoli trade. So the Tyler Toffoli trade, and then all the trades after that up till the trade deadline, obviously. Some of these deals, there's a lot of stuff I have to talk about. Other ones, not really much. So, be taking a look and reviewing them. The trades will pop up on your screen as I talk about them. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to get this one started. So, let's get into this. That's will be the first thing we talk about. We're about to get into that. After that, we'll just talk about what the deadline means specifically for the Calgary Flames and in general for the National Hockey League. Like, how does that change the playoff race? How does that kind of, set us up to see what the playoffs will be like and who the top cup contenders are? Then finally, we're going to be reviewing the final 2 games the Calgary Flames have played. The one versus the San Jose Sharks, which was March 22nd, and the one against the Vancouver Canucks, which was a couple days before that Saturday. I believe that was March 19th. We'll be taking a look at that, and that should be it for the first episode. So let's get into the trades. The first trade that I'll be talking about will be the Calgary Flames. Of course, Calgary Flames acquire forward Tyler Toffoli, and the Montreal Canadiens get a boatload of stuff. Forward Tyler Pitlick, forward prospect Emil Heineman, a 2022 first-round pick, which is top 10 protected. If it is a top 10 pick, Montreal will receive a 2023 first-round pick and a 2024 fourth-round pick, along with a 2023 fifth-round pick, which is part of that trade. This is a pretty big one. Obviously, coming into this one was over a month ago now, and this one was a pretty big one. No one expected the Flames to go and make a move about 5 weeks before the trade deadline. And I was obviously surprised this happened. There's a lot of talk about the Flames wanting to acquire Tyler Toffoli, and that was a pretty exciting prospect, really good idea. In my mind, I was really excited to see if that would happen. Again, wasn't really expecting it to happen all that much, and especially that early. And when it did happen, I was pretty shocked. My first thoughts when I opened my phone and saw the trade go down was, oh my gosh, they traded a first for Tyler Toffoli, and I was kind of stunned. I thought that this deal was a bit of an overpay when I saw this happen at first, considering that we're giving out that first along with prospect Emil Heineman. Again, not a top-level prospect, but I would say he could become a pretty solid mid-6 player in the NHL someday. And very soon in the next couple of years, we could see him coming in the NHL and starting to play there. I was kind of disappointed. I was hoping that it would be... I'm fine with Pitlick going in that 5th-round pick. Those, again, not high-value assets in this deal. Heineman in that first, I think it had to be either that first or Emil Heineman, one or the other. So I was a little bit ashamed that we sent over a lot of that stuff, but then Tyler Toffoli started playing for the Calgary Flames, and a little bit of not up-to-date stats, but so far Tyler Toffoli currently, as we speak, already has 8 goals and 7 assists as a Flame, 15 points. I believe those are... Let me just look them up, make sure I have them up-to-date here, since I did write these down a little bit longer ago, but taking a look here, yeah, In 18 games played, he has 8 goals and 7 assists for 15 total points as a Flame. Before that, on the Habs, he played 37 games, he had 9 goals, 17 assists for 26 points. Right, he's already at that. He was already at 8 goals. He had 9 goals in 37. He has 8 and 18 in Calgary. So that answer is like, I would say maybe the next couple games is probably going to tie those 9 goals. Just shows that he's coming to Calgary, he's producing so well. I think for quite a while here, he was at a point per game. He's not anymore, but he was for quite a long time a point per game player in Calgary. And obviously his contract is really reasonable at $4.25 million per year, and he'll become a UFA in 2024. So you have this veteran guy for 2.5 years. I really can't complain. The way he's playing, I think, as he's been under the Flames on this deal. Now, we gave up that first, we gave up that fifth, but it's quite likely that first round pick is going to be, I would say, anywhere from 25th overall to 32nd overall in the draft, which is not that high of value, right? The chance of there being a golden player in there is pretty, the chances are pretty high. Sorry, the chances are pretty low, is what I'm going to say. So, I think the Flames came out on top of this deal, considering the fact that Toffoli is already playing so well here. He's already has a ton of connections, right? Thinking about it with the connections, right? There's Monahan, who he played with in the OHL for the Ottawa 67s. You've got Trevor Lewis and Brad Richardson from LA. You've also got Lucic from LA. He played there briefly with Jacob Markstrom in Vancouver. He also was obviously coached by Daryl Sutter in LA, so just a bunch of really good connections for him. He's fit into this roster so well. Speaking of some of the stuff that's going to Montreal, Tyler Pitlick, I think it's just good that we relieve that much cap. He was on a $1.75 per million deal. Becomes the UFA this offseason. He only had 2 assists in Calgary and I would say 20 plus games. I'm not sure exactly how many he played, but that seems like a little bit of a win for Calgary to shed that much cap space. And I think the biggest loss here would be giving up that first bid again. Not going to be that high value, but that's my thoughts on this. I think Flames easily come out of this, and they also get a pretty solid, deep lineup. Just looking at the latest game for the Flames, he's actually on the first line with Giroux and Lindholm. So that also, I think, just shows that he's being trusted with a pretty responsibility. He's being trusted with a pretty big offensive responsibility, and he's fulfilling that. He's one of the key offense producers of late for the Flames. So I think it's a good deal for the Flames, but right, as you can't say much until that first round pick gets drafted and you see what prospect comes out of it. So yeah. It's coming up to the next one. The Arizona Coyotes and Toronto Maple Leafs made the deal. The Nick Ritchie trade. So the Coyotes get forward Nick Ritchie, a 2023 third round pick or a 2025 second round pick, whichever they choose. And while the Leafs acquire forward Ryan Zingle and defenseman Ilya Lyubushkin. So who won this deal? On paper, when this deal first happened, this was like, wait, what? A little bit confusing, but once I had one, like, none of them looking at it written down in front of me. It's basically based on what the Coyotes choose. Do they choose the third or their second? If they choose the third, I would have said, well, Leafs win this deal. This is back when the deal happened, which was, I think, about a month ago. I would have said Leafs win the deal. If the Coyotes choose the second, though, I would definitely say that the Coyotes do get the favor of this deal, because Zingle and Lyubushkin, good players, but at the same time, a second round pick seems like a pretty good value here. But then, looking at how this deal pans out, this is a little bit outdated, the numbers have with me, but I'm just going to sort of paraphrase here. Looking at where we sit now with this trade, Nick Ritchie with the Maple Leafs this year had 2 goals, 7 assists for a total of 9 points. Sent down to the AHL, to the Marlies, doesn't get picked up on waivers. I don't know if it was waiver exempt or not, but basically goes to the Marlies, plays 2 games, and has a goal. And then, so basically the trade happens, and with the Coyotes, he goes. Pretty crazy stuff. For the latest numbers I have, I should probably search this up for the latest numbers, but Nick Ritchie, taking a look here, with the Arizona Coyotes, in 12 games played, he already has 6 goals, plus 2 assists for 8 points in 12 games. In Toronto, he only had 2 goals in a total of 33 games played. Kind of mind-boggling. I think when it came to Arizona, obviously he's playing, I would assume, much higher up in the lineup than where he was in Toronto. Obviously, Toronto's a way more skilled team than Arizona. That goes without saying this year. But come on, man. Like, this just Oh gosh, I mean, if you're the Leafs, a little bit of shaker. Didn't work out on either end. I think wasn't a good fit in Toronto. They thought he would be with the 2.5 million per year cap hit until 2023, until the 2023 off season. So then what happened with Zingle, right? So let's look at what the Leafs got. The Leafs got Zingle, right? With the Coyotes in 26 games, he had 4 goals and 3 assists for 7 points. And he wouldn't play a single game with the Leafs, sent down on waivers, and picked up by the Sharks. Basically leaves the Leafs for free. With the Sharks, just typing this in here to see what he did. The Sharks, with the Sharks, in 6 games, he has 1 goal. So again, not groundbreaking, but that's still a goal. So basically, they lost Zingle for free. Ilya Lyubushkin, not an offensive player. You can't just look at his offensive numbers and judge. He's a UFA this year, but for Ilya Lyubushkin, this kind of boils down to, for Ilya Lyubushkin, they gave up Ritchie and potentially a 2025 second. So, yeah, obviously, I think the Coyotes won this deal. There's not really a question. But even if the Coyotes choose to take the 2023 third-round pick, that's still a pretty big win in the Coyotes' favor, right? Or maybe if the Coyotes don't win this, the Leafs still do lose this since lost Zingle to waivers. And Lyubushkin's just playing the typical D stuff, but who knows? Knowing the Leafs' defensive situation, knowing how guys are going to go in and out of the lineup there, because they don't really have a solid defensive lineup set up yet. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't even play for them in the playoffs. I think they should, personally, because physical defenseman, I think he would be good for them in that role. But regardless, kind of a disappointing deal, I think. Disappointing finish for the Toronto Maple Leafs, for sure. Not much other to say there. The next one's a pretty quick one. Leafs acquire goaltender Carton Hutton for future considerations. Basically got Hutton for free. Really, to say anything about this, it's not a big deal. I don't have much to say about this one. So, moving on to the next deal. Another pretty small one. It's a Flames one. Calgary Flames get goaltender Michael McNiven, goaltending prospect. And the Habs get future considerations. Legendary prospect got traded twice in a pretty short span there. Just kidding, obviously. But Michael McNiven, I don't really know how to really put this. I think he's a goaltending prospect. I did a little bit of looking up on him when I saw this deal go down, but didn't think much of it. Where does it going to fit in the Flames organization, right? Like Flames and then the Heat. When you think about it, the Flames goaltending is Markstrom, who's the NHL starter, Vlad, who's the NHL backup, Wolf, who's in the AHL, who would probably be the next guy to come up. There's Adam Werner. There's Parsons. There's also Chechelev. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know exactly where he's playing. I don't think he's in the AHL, but regardless, they already have so many goaltenders. I don't see a need for McNiven. But we're going to get to McNiven a little bit later. Let's talk about him. He will get dealt again in the deadline to the Senators for future consideration. So he kind of comes in and leaves. Not really a big deal. I would say kind of just came to the Flames and for the future, like traded future considerations for McNiven, and traded to the Senators for future consideration. So not much going on here. I will briefly mention that again later on here. So, San Jose Sharks, next deal here. San Jose Sharks acquires goaltender Alex Stalock from the Oilers for future considerations. Another one of those same kind of deals. There's a couple of those in here, but nothing much to think about here either. Right, Sharks got a goaltender, Oilers get future considerations. I don't think there's much dissecting going on here. So the next trade. This is finally, I think, where some of the bigger moves started kicking in. And the first deal of kind of the Anaheim Ducks unloading a bunch of really skilled players. The Avalanche acquire defenseman Josh Manson with a 50% salary retention. And the other way, Anaheim Ducks get defenseman prospect Drew Helleson and a 2023 second-round pick. Pretty big deal that went down here. I found about this one kind of interesting. I just was on Twitter to see if anything was going on, and I just saw Manson got tough, so I was kind of shocked. Wow. Again, there isn't much to say here. Obviously, he's a defenseman. He's also a defensive defenseman, Josh Manson. So you can't really look at his numbers and say how he's playing. I think he's going to really, really pan out really well for the Avalanche team. His contract does end this year. He's a $4.1 million per year contract, and he's a UFA in this offseason. But that's again with 50% retention. So Avs do get a pretty good deal there. They do trade unsigned prospect Drew Helleson, who immediately signed with the Ducks after the trade. He'll become an RFA in 2025, and he signs the basic rookie contract for $925K or $925,000 sorry, what am I saying? $925,000 a year. And the second round pick also goes the other way. So, what do I think about this deal? I think in the short run, the Avalanche win this deal. They're gearing up for a run. I think they're gearing up for the Stanley Cup again. More thoughts on that later on here, but this is going to help them out. Is it going to be a massive difference maker? No, but it's going to help bolster their core. Looking at what their Avalanche defense looks like at full strength, obviously they have Girard and Byram out with injury. They've got Makar Toes, Girard, Manson, Byram, Eric Johnson, Jack Johnson. There's even Murray in there. They've got some pretty solid D core here. So this guy comes in, he's also going to add to that. So pretty solid setup for them. Again, do they re-sign him? I doubt it. But what goes to the Anaheim Ducks way? So that's short term. Long term, I think the Anaheim Ducks could win this deal. Just looking at how Drew Helleson plays. Drew Helleson looks like a pretty solid prospect here. Obviously, immediately signed him. Just see what he was doing lately. I'm not sure exactly what his numbers have been, but just taking a look at it, he plays for Boston College right now. So basically earlier this year, so Boston College, 32 games, 4 goals, and 21 assists for 25 points. That is pretty damn solid. The year before that, 22 games, 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points. So he just started playing with the San Diego Gulls, which is the AHL affiliate for the Anaheim Ducks. Just played 1 game there, but again, not much to look at there. But just looking at some of his Boston College stats, that is some pretty solid stats. And there's obviously the U.S. National Under-18 team in 18-19, 28 games, 11 points, and then so just looking at some of the other stats here. So, and then 17-18, you got your 17 team in the USHL, 34 games and 18 points. This guy is pretty solid, I think. And to think about what the future D-core looks like for the Anaheim Ducks, they've got Helleson. They also have Drysdale. That's pretty good. I think I'm forgetting another name of another D prospect that they might have there. But yeah, that's pretty good for them as well. That's second round pick. I guess just there to sweeten the pot. I guess finally just make that deal happen. But yeah, it's a pretty solid trade. To say who won this deal, it's kind of tough. But I think short term Avalanche, long term Anaheim for this one. So going to the next one. This is another one, interesting one. Another deal for the Avalanche. Avalanche acquire forward Nico Sturm, and the Wild get forward Tyson Jost. My thoughts on this one. This is another interesting one. Unexpected for sure. I wouldn't have expected the Wild to trade Nico Sturm. I wouldn't have expected. I personally wasn't expecting the Avs to necessarily go out and trade Jost, but I didn't really think that Jost was a good fit in Colorado. He hasn't panned out. He was, I think, 10th overall pick back in 2016. Yeah. So obviously, when you're a top 10 pick, 10th overall in 2016. When you're a top 10 pick, I guess you're expected to do better. But with the Avs in 59 games, he had 6 goals and 8 assists for 14 points. With the Wild, he's played 3 games and has a single assist. So, right, some okay play there, I guess. And that's pretty interesting. And not expecting this deal to go down. Just looking at what Nico Sturm has done since arriving in Colorado. He's played only 2 games and doesn't have any points. But again, that's tough to gauge here. I think Nico Sturm, interesting what he's been able to do in Minnesota the last couple of years. Last year, in 50 games, he had a total of 11 goals, 6 assists for 17 points. And with the Wild this year, he played 53 games, 9 goals, 8 assists, 17 points. So it seems like he's kind of on the rise. I think he was a mid-6 guy, maybe bottom 6 guy on the Wild. I'm not sure, though. But, yeah. I did hear his name a few times here and there, but an interesting trade here to see. I don't know. Again, I don't know who this pans out in favor for. Kind of want to say the Avalanche because they're already a really good team. They add another guy. Also, Nico Sturm's a pretty big guy. Yeah, height 6.03, 209 pounds. So yeah, pretty big guy also. So I would say that I think the Avalanche just adding some bulk for the playoffs and letting Tyson just go. Just taking a look at some of their salaries. Nico Sturm on a $725,000 deal he becomes a UFA this year. Jost has a $2 million per year deal, becomes an RFA, not the upcoming offseason, but the 2023 offseason. So, interesting to see how this goes down. I think the Avalanche win this deal, but who knows, maybe Tyson Jost does see some improvement in Minnesota. Next show, this is a quick one. Rangers get forward Frank Vatrano, and the Florida Panthers get a 2022 4th-round pick. I don't know if there was any retention. I don't think there was any retention on this deal, but I'll take a look here. But what do I think of this one? This one's an interesting one. Obviously, New York adding some depth for the playoffs. They made a bunch of deals here at the trade deadline. Kind of crazy what they've done. But yeah, like just some of the guys they got, they have really become, I think, a much deeper team than they were before the trade deadline. So an interesting one. Yeah, I don't think they retained any of his salary. So yeah, that's an interesting deal for sure. Here for Vatrano. So Vatrano hasn't played much with the Rangers yet. He does have a goal. So let's see what they do with him. But I think that's a pretty good acquisition that the Rangers definitely win here. So yeah, just take a look and see what Vatrano's cap hit is. Okay, so 2.5 million-ish deal till this offseason 2020, and he becomes a UFA. An interesting one. Okay, one of the bigger trades at the trade deadline, the Ben Chiarot trade. So Florida Panthers get defenseman Ben Chiarot with a 50% salary retention, while the Montreal Canadiens acquire forward Tyler Smilanic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. 2023 first-round pick and a 2022 fourth-round pick. Right off the bat, I'm going to say that, okay, actually, I was going to say one way or the other, but I really couldn't decide who wins the deal. Just looking at it again. So to see what Tyler Smilanic has, what kind of player he is. He's getting a prospect drafted 74th overall by the Panthers in the 2022 NHL entry draft. He's currently playing for the Quinnipiac University ECAC. Cannot talk today. Gosh. 2021-22, he has 39 games played, 22 points. Alright, so he's an okay player, I guess. Playing sort of, he's a forward, shoots left. So again, prospect here, interesting, could be a potential mid-6 guy. But again, I don't know much about him. So I don't know, he could be pan out to be an okay player there. 2023 first. Again, this first, I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be a very, very late first. This is 2023, not the upcoming one. But again, I don't see the Florida Panthers slowing down necessarily anytime soon. And therefore, that pick, the first round pick, doesn't have that much value in it. I would say sort of maybe it's going to be anywhere between 20th overall to the end of the first round. So, and then also there's a fourth right there. I'm going to say this is an interesting one, but I do think the Florida Panthers win this deal with Ben Chiarot. They get Ben Chiarot, he's going to help them in the playoffs quite a lot, and if the Florida Panthers go ahead and win the cup, Ben Chiarot becomes a part of that. Not maybe the biggest part of that, but does become a part of that cup and contributes to that. Well, Montreal Canadiens get, obviously, a mid-level sort of prospect, a fourth, and then obviously that first, which turns into a very late first. That probably doesn't really pan out the way the Canadiens would hope, right? And I think the Florida Panthers do win this, especially if they are able to may have a lot of success in the playoffs and potentially win the cup with Ben Chiarot. Just looking at Ben Chiarot's contract here at $3.5 million per year, he becomes a UFA this offseason. I think that's one of the reasons they want to trade him. And Tyler Smilanic is an unsigned prospect, as far as I can see here. Another pretty big one after that with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Chicago Blackhawks. Lightning acquire forward Brendan Hagel, a 2022 fourth-round pick and a 2024 fourth-round pick. And the Blackhawks get forward Boris Kachuk, forward Taylor Radish, 2023 first-round pick, which is top 10 protected, and a 2024 first-round pick, which is top 10 protected. This right off the bat, the Chicago Blackhawks win. They're trading over a forward who wasn't expected to play as well as he is right now. They trade him over. He's trying to really heat up. I believe he had 21 goals last year. and just a couple of mid-draft picks there, like kind of mid-round picks. Yeah, so Hagel there, 21 goals he currently has 21 goals this year. With just the Blackhawks, he only played 2 games. The Lightning doesn't have anything yet there. And even the year before that, he started to sort of heat up with 24 points. So really heating up here. One of their better players this year for the Blackhawks for sure. And they trade him over, but they get 2 first-round picks in return. Well, these aren't going to be necessarily top 10 picks, which they won't be. They're top 10 protected. But these aren't necessarily going to be top half of the first round. I don't think they're going to be mid-first round. But they can still be mid-first round and pan out into somewhat good players. But you're getting 2 firsts for some guy who's, he could really solid be a part of the mid-6 in Lightning. But I think the Blackhawks do win this in the long term. They also get 2 depth forwards, such as Boris Katchouk and Taylor Radish. Again, they're both on $758,000 deals, and they both become RFAs in 2023. While, and Brendan Hagel is having that career year. So I think overall the Blackhawks do win this deal. Another thought that does come to mind looking at this one is that just in general, the Lightning had a pretty solid bottom 6 core going into the last 2 playoffs where they won the cups, right? Where there was a third line, that was Gaudreau, Coleman, and Yanni Gourde. All 3 of them left in the offseason, right? Gaudreau and Coleman left as free agents. Gaudreau went to the Rangers, and Coleman came to the Flames. While Yanni Gourde got selected in the Seattle expansion draft, and now they've got a few other depth pieces in that run. They had Pat Maroon, who they still have. They acquired Corey Perry, but they're losing Boris Katchouk and Taylor Radish. They also lost Matthew Joseph in the Nick Paul deal. We'll get to that later, but they're losing a lot of that bottom 6 that they had then. They're acquiring Hagel, who's I think would be on the third line for them, but they have sort of shedded that. They've sort of kind of moved on from that, and I think that could impact them in their run. It's sort of that kind of fell apart in the offseason and throughout the trade deadline. They sort of tried to rebuild it during this trade deadline as well. But yeah, an interesting move here for the Lightning. They're really trying to build, give 2 firsts for some guy that could pan out into a consistent, maybe 15-20 goal scorer each year. Then there's another deal. The Wild get Nicolas Deslauriers. I don't know how to pronounce him. Sorry, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And the Ducks get a 2023 third-round pick. Another interesting one here. I do believe that Deslauriers did score his first goal with the Wild in his first game with the Wild. It was yesterday, as I'm recording this, the 21st. So that's pretty cool for him. Ducks got a third-round pick back. I don't know if there's much to look at with this deal. Looking at Deslauriers' contract. See sort of where his cap hit lands here. So he becomes a UFA this offseason. He's on a $1 million deal. I think he's a pretty big hitter, massive hitter. I think I read somewhere this one statistic. I could be wrong, but he's 12th in hits since the 14-15 season. That's a pretty cool stat to have, I think. So yeah, that's a guy you want in the playoffs. I think Wild win this deal for sure here. So yeah, another interesting one. Okay, now one that comes as a little bit of a disappointment to me as a Calgary Flames fan. The Bruins acquire defenseman Hampus Lindholm with a 50% salary retention and defenseman Corey Curran, while the Anaheim Ducks get defenseman Urho Vakanainen, defenseman John Moore, 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 second-round pick, and a 2024 fourth-round pick. Oh, this one comes as a disappointment. Why do I say that? Because I wanted Hampus Lindholm to come to Calgary. I think out of all the players out there, right, there's Chiarot, Hampus Lindholm. Who else is there that I wanted? Yeah, Ricard Raquel, even Claude Giroux, JT Miller. I wanted those guys. I would have loved to see some of those guys come to Calgary. If it was just one of them, and Hampus Lindholm was one of those guys. Like, I really wanted him, and I know he's not brothers with us, Lindholm. He's not related to Lindy, but still be really cool to have him. I think he's a pretty solid D and would be a good D to have. Would be a really good defensive manager just to bolster that D core and make it solid for the playoffs. I was disappointed to see him go to Boston here. Just looking at this top level, who wins this trade? When the deal goes down, I think the Ducks come out with the win here. But considering the fact that the Boston Bruins just signed Hampus Lindholm to a 8-year deal until 2023, it'll become a UFA into the year 2030, not 2023, 2030, with a $6.5 million cap hit. I mean, come on. I think the Bruins win this deal. They extended him, obviously. I think what I heard, I could be wrong with this again. The Ducks were just looking if they could re-sign, if Manson, Raquel, Lindholm, Hampus Lindholm wanted extensions in Anaheim, and if they didn't, they couldn't come to an agreement with them, they would ship them out. And as you can see, Hampus Lindholm already extended with Boston, so obviously he wanted to move on there from there. But what the Ducks get, it's not a little amount, if anything. I mean, some of those prospects they have, Uro Vakanainen, I think he could pan out to be a pretty good player there. Yeah, he was an 18th overall pick in the 2017 NHL draft. He's played a little bit with Boston, but yeah, he could pan out to be a pretty solid D, I think, here for Anaheim. Again, looking at that D core now, you've got Drysdale, Vakanainen, Helleson. He's starting to build up in a pretty young D core that could develop into a pretty solid one moving forward. He's also got veteran defenseman John Moore. The Anaheim Ducks get first, second, and fourth. That's a pretty high value for Hampus Lindholm there. But I think the Ducks could really get a lot of benefit out of this one. But the Bruins are really cashing in with this one, I think. But yeah, disappointed about this one that the Flames couldn't get Hampus Lindholm. So yeah, the next one, oh gosh, another pretty massive one. The Panthers get Claude Giroux with 50% retention, along with forward Connor Bunnaman, forward prospect German Rubtsov, and a 2024 5th-round pick. And the Flyers get forward Owen Tippett, a 2024 first, and a 2023 third. Oh gosh, another one disappointed. I knew Claude Giroux coming to Calgary was, closer to impossible than possible in any sense, but it's pointless to even go to Florida. I think it all boiled down to Claude Giroux having that no trade clause where he got to decide where he wanted to go, and he said Florida, and Florida was where he went. So Claude Giroux with 50% salary retention, his contract does end this year. It's on a $8.275 million deal, and is a UFA this offseason, as mentioned. But the Panthers do win this deal. There's no real question about it. And they're even getting Bunnaman, Rubtsov, that 5th-round pick. Low value, not the most significant there, but just taking a look at it, Rubtsov, I believe, was a former first-round pick for the Panthers, the Philadelphia Flyers, 22nd overall with the Flyers. Didn't do much there, and obviously not playing to the first-round potential, but again, late first-round pick there. The Flyers get Owen Tippett, who's a top-level prospect, definitely a really good guy to have on the team, a first and a third. I think the Flyers could really pan out here with Owen Tippett coming up to the sort of really, coming up as a really solid prospect, really solid player for them down the stretch and in the next few years. Along with that first and that third, I think the Flyers could get a lot of good value out of this, but they're not going to get as much as they're going to get out of trading Claude Giroux. And I think the Panthers do win this deal. They're getting a first liner, and if he's not put on the first line, he's put on the second line, and that's super deep. That's pretty super deep. Kind of, you're getting a really skilled guy on the second line, which moves potentially Reinhart or Duclair to the third line. I'm not trying to know the Panthers lineup exactly here, but this is a real win for the Panthers, considering what they're getting and what they're giving up there. But yeah, that's a pretty big one, and it does hurt a little bit to see Giroux leave the team. My thoughts would be that the reason the Flyers got such a little value out of him is because there was only really one team competing. That's Florida, right? Since Giroux wanted to go to Florida, and that's where he had to go. Right, there's a little bit of competition. There's there's obviously Colorado involved as well. Maybe Carolina, maybe Calgary. Then there's that competition, right? There would definitely been a lot more going the Flyers' way here, but obviously not as much as maybe the Flyers would have hoped. But again, very interesting. This is going to be a monumental one, and in my opinion, probably the biggest deal of the deadline. this year. The next one, under a pretty small transaction here, the Panthers get defenseman Robert Hagg, and the Buffalo Sabres get 2022 6th round pick. Hagg, I think a little bit more of a physical guy. Good to have on the back end. And yeah, pretty solid. The Los Angeles Kings acquire another defenseman, Troy Stecher, and the Red Wings get a 2022 7th round pick. This is an interesting one, considering the fact that I wouldn't have expected Troy Stecher's value to be this low, just a 7th. He becomes a UFA in 2022 this offseason for $1.6 million per year. And meanwhile, this 7th is pretty interesting again. They're getting only a 7th. The Kings definitely come out on top here again. So yeah, I don't know if there's really much arguing going here, but Troy Stecher should be a pretty solid piece for the Kings down the stretch again into the playoffs, as they're second in the Pacific. Pretty surprising, but good for them, I guess. The Senators get defenseman Travis Hamonic, and the Vancouver Canucks acquire 2022 third round pick. Okay, this one starts the spur of multiple trades, which sort of starts with this one, I guess. The Senators get Travis Hamonic for a third round pick. Just looking at Travis Hamonic's overall season, he hasn't been near consistently in the lineup for the Canucks. This year, only 24 games played, 3 goals, 4 assists or 7 points, again playing typical average hockey. Look, this guy's pretty gritty, pretty physical. But I don't know. I don't think this deal should really go on. I don't see what the Senators really want from Hamonic here. And he's on a $3 million deal and is a UFA in 2023. So he's here for a little bit longer, and they're taking on that $3 million cap space as well. The Canucks do shed it. I think the Canucks win this deal just solely because of the fact that the Canucks really don't need Hamonic. They haven't been able to fully utilize him this year. And by trading him, they're only honestly just clearing up that cap space, that $3 million cap space, and getting a third back. And so yeah, interesting. I think that this is a pretty big win for the Canucks here, and an interesting move, to say the least. Senators getting here. Maybe Travis Hamonic was going to help to kind of influence that team, so be one of those team guys, just in the locker room, I guess. Maybe I don't know much about Hamonic, but. So the next trade, which sort of opened up the cap space for the Canucks to make this trade, is to get Travis Dermott. And the Maple Leafs get a 2022 third round pick. Very, very interesting as the Leafs trade Travis Dermott. They've been having deep problems for, I would say, 2 months. I would say, like, Canucks, basically what do you think about it? They traded 2022 third. You could say the Canucks basically traded Hamonic for Dermott. And you can definitely see the Dermott, younger guy. That's a pretty solid acquisition for them there. Top on the back end, I think he'll be a consistent piece on the back end of the Canucks. He won't be going in and out of the lineup. I would say he's going to be staying there. Might replace someone like Luke Schenn, but I'm not too sure about that. But and the Leafs get a third round pick back. I'm sort of surprised the Leafs would make this trade, but at the same time, it does make sense, right? The D problems, they just need to start clearing out some of those D. And I would say that, fortunately for Dermott, he's kind of been on the worst end of that. He's been one of the worst D for the Maple Leafs of late, and kind of moving him on would be a pretty good deal. And again, he has a lot of room to improve, and the Vancouver is going to definitely have much more of an important role than he did in Toronto. But who knows? Maybe this pans out for both teams, and I think it will, considering the fact that the Leafs do give up a pick, open up a little bit more cap space, and that cap space will help them make the next deal that we're going to talk about. But yeah, the Canucks get Travis Dermott here. So yeah, pretty interesting one. The Canucks could really also pan out with Dermott there. Get to the next one, which is the Giordano trade. Oh gosh, yeah, the Leafs get defenseman Mark Giordano with 50% salary retention, along with depth forward Colin Blackwell, while the Kraken acquire a 2022 second, a 2023 second, and a 2024 third. Who wins this deal? The Maple Leafs. They're only giving up a couple of seconds. This isn't firsts we're talking. Chiarot was traded for a first. This guy only goes for a pair of seconds. And a third, obviously. This is a very interesting goal. This isn't that interesting. This just feels like the Leafs needed a D. Now their defense is looking a lot better with Muzzin, Gio, Brody, and then Morgan Riley. And I mean, I think now it's at a point where Brody and Gio, two, I guess, going to be very responsible D-men who can move the puck. They're going to be extremely important for the Maple Leafs to help bring that structure to their defense. Right, there's obviously Brody was already there, but Gio's going to help this Toronto defense tremendously. They desperately needed him. They also got Muzzin, who I think it's a guy the Leafs rely on. Meanwhile, there's Morgan Riley in the mix, but right, you're gonna have, I think his kind of playstyle, his offensive playstyle is gonna sort of be backed by Gio and Brody, who's already there. And they've only got some of that depth, so I think this works out. The one thing I really would love to see here is the Maple Leafs do the Brody-Gio pairing, because that's what they had in Calgary. That was the Calgary Flames' first pairing for a few years. Sorry, just taking a sip of water there. So that's the Flames had. I would love to see Brody and Gio either reunited, play again on the same pairing. That would be pretty cool. Forward, Colin Blackman, depth forward, good in the playoffs, I suppose. It's interesting what he'll do there in Toronto. And obviously those couple picks that go back the Kraken way. I think the Leafs do win this deal. There isn't a first involved, which I do believe the Kraken were looking for. And so yeah, pretty straightforward there. Another little bit of factor I think that this is pretty important here is that the Flames didn't get Gio. There was also that talk that the Flames should get Gio back, get their captain back. I'm kind of glad they didn't. Again, that's a pretty big cap to be taking on. I believe 6.2 or 6.5 in that ballpark. I'm just looking it up right now, but the Flames didn't actually get him because of a certain regulation that certain rule that's in the rule book that when a player gets selected in the expansion draft, they can't be traded back to the team that they came from. So Gio came from the Flames. He can't be traded back to the Flames with salary retention. With any salary retention, has to be so basically no salary retention. Retaining salary, that's not allowed as an expansion team. An interesting rule. I didn't read too much on it, but again, he's a $6.75 million deal. He's a UFA this year, but oh gosh, that just adds to the Flames' caps problems. I mean, you can always say the Flames don't have to re-sign him, but come on, he's such an important piece to the Flames. He would be if he came to Calgary. They would sort of have to sign him, and that brings more complications. But I mean, when you look at it, I think it's a good fit for the Leafs. And suppose there was really the destined to come to Calgary for him. But again, very interesting to see Gio go to the Leafs. I'm happy for Gio. He gets to play for his hometown team and potentially have a run at the Cup. But yeah, very interesting there. So the next trade that went down was the Nick Paul trade. Lightning get Nick Paul with 44.5% salary retention. The Senators get forward Matthew Joseph and a 2024 fourth round draft pick. Okay, that's an interesting one. But they're trading a depth piece that they had. I don't think Matthew Joseph played a lot in the playoffs last year. And then they're getting Nick Paul. It's going to be a solid piece in their bottom six. I think this is a good deal for the Lightning. In general, with that, Nick Paul can play. He's a pretty good player. And I think, just take a look at some of the numbers he's got. Oh, he's already scored a goal with Tampa. That is very interesting. Yeah, that's pretty good for him. 18 points in through 59 games with the Senators this year. So I think definitely a pretty solid trade to go down here. So that's a pretty good acquisition for Tampa, I would say. Matthew Joseph, on the other hand, another good skilled forward. He's going to be able to contribute to this team here, to the Senators team. But definitely a win for the Lightning, I would say, considering the fact that he got Skype. Let's see. Senators. He's already played a game with the Senators. Hasn't been much yet, but obviously it's only one game. Yeah, the Senators do also get that fourth, but I think the Lightning win this deal. And that's kind of all I have to say about this one. It's a pretty quick one. So, another quick one. Stars get goaltender Scott Wedgewood from the Coyotes, who give the 2023 fourth round pick. And that's a conditional pick. I wasn't able to really find what the conditions were, but it's a conditional fourth round pick. Stars get Scott Wedgewood. I would assume that he comes into maybe a backup role behind Holtby. Was Holtby injured? I don't think he is. Kubodin is injured for the rest of the year, I believe. So it sort of seemed like yeah, it sort of seems like that is when it seemed like the Holby might get traded in the offseason. He's sticking in Dallas to be their goalie, to be their basically their starter, um, to be their starter for the rest of the year and into the playoffs for the Stars if they do make it. I think it's Scott Wedgewood. I don't know if he's going to be the backup. He hasn't had a tremendously good year. I think that's even understating it. Scott, I'm just trying to look into see. I believe he started the year in Jersey, went to Arizona, and now he's in Dallas. Yeah, he started the year in New Jersey, pretty played weak. I think he was sent down on waivers. He signed by the Devils, claimed off waivers by the Coyotes, and then traded from the Coyotes to the Stars. Yeah, that's rough for him, I guess. I don't know if it's going to be Ottinger, sorry, who's going to be backing up Holby, or even starting, maybe even up to half the games. But I don't know. See what the Stars do here. That's an interesting move though for the Stars. So now you got the Jeremy Lauzon. Predators get Jeremy Lauzon from the Kraken, who get a second-round pick for 2022. Gosh, the Kraken are basically dealing everyone. The Kraken have a lot of picks this year. I think before deadline day, so the final day of the trade deadline, they had 30 picks in the next 3 years, something in that ballpark. Oh, maybe even up to 40. I'm not exactly sure what that number is, but they definitely increased that. So, looking at that, they're in a pretty solid situation. The Kraken, for all the draft picks they have, Predators get Jeremy Lauzon. I don't know potentially how much value they would get out of him. I would say the Kraken do win this deal, getting the second in return though. The Jets get back for Mason Appleton. Kraken get a fourth. That was a pretty nice deal for the Jets for Mason Appleton to return. I remember him. It's a bit of an unexpected guy, but played pretty solid. Bad stuff from last year with the Flames with him, and he's played a game with returning in Winnipeg. He had 17 points, 6 goals, 11 assists, 49 games with the Kraken. Interesting. I think the Jets come out on top with this one. They're getting a pretty good forward. I think he might play on their third line. I would put him on the third line, but who knows? Another interesting one. I think all these deals are pretty interesting because, I wasn't expecting Appleton to get dealt. I wasn't expecting Lauzon to get dealt. I was kind of expecting Gio to get dealt. Calle Jarnkrok, we'll get to that one in a little bit, to get dealt as well. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff here. Right, moving on to the next one. The Beaulieu trade. Beaulieu the Penguins get Nathan Beaulieu, and the Jets get a 2022 7th-round pick, which is conditional. Penguins, I think, just kind of gearing up for a run here. Who knows? Maybe even Crosby's final run. That's quite a shocker there. But yeah, that's kind of the reality of it. Crosby doesn't really have much time left. I think the Blackhawks team is just trying to sort of build through this one right now. Build to get to a good run here, and I think that is going to potentially happen here for them. So yeah, good to see Penguins trying to get Crosby those one last cup here. So pretty interesting move there. And another trade regarding the Jets. This is a trading the contract for Brian Little. The Jets will get a 2022 4th-round pick, while the Coyotes acquire forward Brian Little's contract. He's retired. And forward Nathan Smith. I believe he's a prospect. Interesting move here. I think the Coyotes, again, I don't know when Brian Little's contract expires. Just looking that up right now. In 2024, his $5.29 million cap hit will actually end this contract ends. So, yeah. Or is he retired? Yes, I do believe he's retired. Sorry. Interesting move there, again, for the Jets to trade that. And then Nathan Smith, who I believe is a prospect. Smith here, just taking a look at it. Holy crap. I don't know. I can't find it right now. But yeah, interesting move here for sure. Oh gosh, sorry, my headphones fell off middle recording. Gosh, weird moment. But another interesting move. I think Coyote's just trying to get player, giving up that 4th round pick to the Jets. I think the Jets win this deal because they're giving up a pretty big contract here. So yeah, we're interesting to see that one go down there too. The Capitals. Now, next one here, Marcus Johansson. Capitals acquire forward Marcus Johansson with 50% salary retention, and the Seattle Kraken get forward Daniel Sprong, 2022 4th and a 2023 6th. Capitals also building up to see if they can make a deep run into the playoffs. I don't see them doing it, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Again, not really looking for a massive deep run here, but right, trying to build that up. Marcus Johansson returns to the Capitals, of course, and the Kraken get Daniel Sprong. Okay, guys, I think he might have a pretty solid future here. 4th and a 6th, though 4th and a 6th seem a little bit low value here, but I think the Kraken can definitely come out on top here. But obviously, the Capitals, Marcus Johansson pans into a pretty solid, maybe mid-6 guy. Capitals can also win this deal. This one's kind of more of a wait and see. Here. And now another one of the biggest ones, I would say, another one of the really, really biggest trades to go down. Marc-Andre Fleury. You knew this guy was going to get moved, and he goes to the Minnesota Wild. I was pretty positive he was going to go to Toronto, but I think the Geo deal did eat up some of their cap space they had. But Marc-Andre Fleury with 50% salary retention to the Blackhawks for a 2022 second-round pick. This has a condition with it. This one just looking from this one, just looking off this one online. I didn't really know this one off the top of my head, but yes. So conditional condition is that it becomes a first-round pick if Minnesota makes it to the Western Conference Finals and Fleury wins 4+ games in the first 2 playoff rounds. This year, that's a pretty fair condition, I would say. Do I think that will happen? I'm going to still say no. Because to think about it, the Minnesota Wild will have to probably go through teams, potentially St. Louis and potentially Colorado, to make it there. That seems sort of impossible for that team. They're a really good young team, and I think they have a pretty solid future ahead of them. But Marc-Andre Fleury, is he going to stay? Maybe, maybe not. Right? But looking at kind of their cap situation, whatever it's at, but this is a very it's a $7 million deal with that Fury was a $3.5 million against the Wild cap space. 2022 UFA there. Interesting, very interesting trade to go down. I think the Wild do win this, considering they're getting such a skilled goalie. And Blackhawks might end up with only a second-round pick, so interesting for sure. So, I guess in response to that deal, the Wild would make another trade. The Wild would trade to the San Jose Sharks goaltender Kahkonen and a 2022 5th-round pick, while the Wild acquire defenseman Jacob Middleton. Another name that was expected to get moved. The Wild no longer need Kaapo Kahkonen, which makes sense to me. It's just that they had, for their tandem, the goaltending tandem was Talbot and Kahkonen for quite a while, and I think it was sort of back and forth. They do think Talbot was technically their starter. They had Kahkonen, they had Kahkonen in backup, and they no longer need him, considering the fact that it's going to Fleur is going to be their starter, Talbot's going to be the backup, and Kahkonen, they don't really need him, and they ship him off to the San Jose Sharks along with a 5th for Jacob Middleton. The Wild building up always get a defenseman there. I think that's a pretty solid trade. It makes sense for the Wild, and I think the Wild win this trade with Jacob Middleton. Just taking a look at his salary here. See what his salary is. So only $725,000 until this offseason, where he becomes an RFA. So that's a pretty reasonable contract there. I think the Wild do definitely win this, considering that they got their needs taken care of. The Sharks, on the other hand, who Kahkonen is backing them up. Currently, he's backing up Reimer. I think that does help their sort of situation. I think they had Reimer and Adin Hill as their goaltending tandem. So this will definitely give them a boost too. So pretty big, I think a win-win deal for both sides. Another big one. The Rangers made a bunch of big trades here. Including the one for Justin Braun. The New York Rangers get defenseman Justin Braun for a 2020 third round pick. They send that to the Flyers. A pretty solid deal. Again, the New York Rangers kind of went crazy here. I would say in the last hour of the deadline with a bunch of trades for depth players. Justin Braun's going to help them out a lot. They could probably use a D here, and therefore this makes sense for them. Good deal. Rangers come out on top on this one as well, I think. Next one. The Oilers acquire defenseman Brett Kulak in exchange for, and they send him to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for him, defenseman William Lagesson, and a 2022 second-round pick becomes a 2023 second-rounder if the 2022 second-rounder goes to Chicago as a part of the Duncan Keith trade. I think that was also conditioned on that one. Pretty fair trade. I think this is a little bit of an overpay for the Oilers for Brett Kulak, but as a Flames fan, Oilers, you can pay the Canadians whatever you want. Get overpaid, get ripped off. I'm a Flames fan, sorry, Oilers fans, but I think Canadians come on top here. Come out on top. Brett Kulak, he's gonna help their decor in Edmonton, but I don't really see this panning out as a deal that's really going to help them make a run into the playoffs and help them in their playoff run. I think the Canadians do win this deal for sure. This is another small one. Predators acquire Alex Biega for future considerations. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Future considerations doesn't do much. So, just a small trade there. Another small one. The Kings acquire defenseman Frederick Allard, and the Predators acquire forward Braden Burke. 100% honest, I haven't heard of these guys. Just to see what... Alright, it's like... So, Frederick Allard who's sent over to the LA Kings. He's currently playing for the Ontario Reign. One game played, not much there, but again, defenseman, great defense. Don't really know much. Sucked at 78th overall by the Nashville Predators. And what a Braden Burke. For Braden Burke. Here, he's currently playing with the Milwaukee Admirals. Before that, with the Ontario Reign, he had 17 points in 31 games played. So, pretty average. I don't really know who can win this deal since I don't know really anything about these players. But, yeah. Another one to go down there. Another pretty interesting one. Senators acquire forward Zach Senyshyn and a 2022 fifth-round pick. And the Bruins get defenseman Josh Brown and a 2022 seventh-round pick. And the condition is that it will become a sixth-round pick if Senyshyn plays 5 games before the end of the 2021-22 season. Will he? I don't know. I don't know exactly what the Senators' situation is, but I would assume he does play 5, at least 5. Yeah, I think he will. That should become a sixth-round pick there. The Bruins get Josh Brown. I think he's a pretty big guy. That's a pretty interesting one. The thing with Zach Senyshyn, the way I view it, is that guy got sent over to the Bruins, I believe, as a part of the deal with the Flames. Believe it was the Hamilton trade, but I'd have to check. So yeah, just taking a look at the trades here. He's not 15th overall. So draft picks traded from Calgary Flames with a round 2 pick in the draft who became Jeremy Lauzon and a round 2 pick in the draft which became Jacob Forsbacka Carlson to the Boston Bruins for Dougie Hamilton. So yeah, that's the part of the Dougie Hamilton trade. Another interesting one. Would I have assumed that he would get moved in this offseason? No. Another interesting ones. In that case. But I think the Senators could get maybe a good bottom 6 guy out of Senyshyn. He hasn't panned out. That goes just looking at how it's been for him. It's tough, but I think overall here though, the Bruins do come out on top. They're giving up some guy who's not really proven at all in Zach Senyshyn for Josh Brown, who can, I think, contribute to them more than Senyshyn was. So, Good move for the Bruins, I would say. Just taking a look at how he plays. Yeah, with the Boston Bruins, he's 6. So he has 217 pounds. Pretty cool. Pretty good for the Bruins, I think, adding to that physicality there. Another one, the Nicoletti trade. Interesting. Wasn't expecting. Well, I think Nicoletti was expecting him to be one of the trade talks, but didn't. But yeah, here's Steve. So the Blues acquire defenseman Nicoletti with 50% salary retention, along with defenseman Luke Witkowski. And the Red Wings get, in return, forward Oscar Sundqvist, DJ Qualman, and a 2023 second round pick. Okay. This one feels like Nicoletti, though. Okay, so an okay defenseman. They're who looking at him, he's played a game with the Seattle already. He had 16 points, a goal, 15 assists, 16 points in 55 games early with the Red Wings, and a $5.5 million cap hit. I think with that 50% retention as well, and he becomes a UFA this year. So I think the Blues do get a guy that's going to help them, obviously, in the playoffs, right? Just adding to that team. You obviously want to do those things at the deadline. But returning in Oscar Sundqvist, I think the Red Wings do get some pretty good value out of this trade here. More than I would have maybe expected for a guy like Nicoletti, but I was just searching up, exactly seeing what Sundqvist's decision is. He's on $2.75 million deal, and he becomes a UFA in 2023. And also, he had a 2-point game with the Red Wings in his first game, a goal and an assist. Okay, interesting. Just looking at that. 15 points, 4 goals, 11 assists for 15 points in 41 games played with the St. Louis Blues this year. So I think he can be a pretty solid depth forward. I think, personally, just looking at it, Nicoletti, right? How old is he? He's 31 years old, so you can see he still has some time in him. I would say that the Blues could easily take advantage of this one, and they could win this one. And especially Nicoletti becomes a part of that team. I think the St. Louis Blues could win this one, especially if they can extend or re-sign Letty, which I don't know if they'll do that. Another deal that the Avalanche make, the Avalanche biggest buyers get forward Arturi Lehkonen with 50% salary retention, and the Canadians, the biggest sellers at this deadline, get defenseman Justin Barron and 2024 second round pick. Okay, Arturi Lehkonen, I think this might looking for a first for Lehkonen. This seems like the Avalanche might have gotten a little bit of a discount per se, an interesting discount here, but maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But this is an interesting move to see here. Lehkonen's salary contract does end this year, so see, they're just acquiring another depth forward, but just gonna add to this stacked Colorado roster. See to say who won this deal. I don't know. That's really easy to say here, but yeah, another interesting move at the deadline. The Washington Capitals acquire forward Johan Larsson, 50,000 from the Coyotes for a third. The Capitals are getting retention, depth forward, Caps win this deal. I don't really have much to say or think about this deal here either. Next, the Ottawa Senators acquire a 5th round pick in exchange for Zach Sanford. They send him to the Winnipeg Jets. Jets trying to bolster maybe a good third line. We've got Appleton, Sanford, good bottom 6 players for them, I think. For a 5th round pick, not much to say about this one. I think Sanford might have been worth more than a 5th round pick, but that's just what I kind of know of him. But when they just do get someone that's going to help them with their playoff push, however, it seems unlikely that they make it. The Avalanche make another trade. Oh my gosh, the Avalanche, a lot of stuff here. Forward Andrew Cogliano. They extend over the 2024 5th to the San Jose Sharks. Avalanche are getting a really solid experienced guy. Read that Cogliano was over 100 games of playoff experience. Played with the Ducks a lot. I believe it was the Ducks. So we're getting a pretty good player here. In Cogliano, he's going to add experience. He's going to add that depth. The Avalanche win this deal. Yeah, just another massive trade as the Avalanche continue to stack themselves. Gosh. Okay, And we get to another New York Rangers. The Rangers, I arguably one of the biggest trade they made this deadline. The Rangers get forward Andrew Kopp and a 2023 sixth-round pick from the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for forward Morgan Barron, a 2022 second-round pick, which is conditional because a first-round pick if the Rangers win 2 playoff series and Kopp plays in 50% of the Rangers' playoff games. And the other one is also a bit of a condition, a 2022 second-round pick from from St. Louis, or a 2023 second-round pick from the Rangers, and a 2023 fifth-round pick. So basically, a pair of seconds for Morgan Barron and a fifth, potentially a first at second if the Rangers make it to the conference finals, which I don't know if they do win 2 of these series, which means they'll make it there, but yeah, that one seems more of a 50-50. Kind of just seeing how the entire is up. Maybe unlikely, I would think, considering the competition. Still, Jets might get a first out of Andrew Kopp, and Andrew Kopp's a pretty solid, versatile player. I think bottom 6. Just the Rangers just adding on to that, and they're looking a lot more dangerous than they did a little bit before this deadline here. So, moving on to the next one, though. A small move. The San Jose Sharks acquire defenseman Anthony Bitetto, and the Rangers get forward Nick Merkley. Again, not much to be said here, just a quick 1-for-1 trade. But and in the Rangers, I think Nick Merkley could potentially be a depth forward for them. Lineup depth forward still to come in case of injuries. So, next one up, Montreal Canadiens get forward Nate Schnarr in exchange for Andrew Hammond to the Devils. No! I loved the Hamler alert in Montreal. It kind of feels like a little bit of a heartbreak. Hammond gets traded again, second time this year, to the Devils, or at least moves teams. That's disappointing. I wish the Canadiens would have hung on to him. He was playing good for them. Maybe not the best, but pretty good for them. And it was pretty nice moment to see him win his first game in, I believe it was 4 years or 6 years even, in the NHL. And does that with Canadiens. Seems like he's kind of, wow, like so fun. And they trade him. A little bit heartbreaking, a little bit sad to see him go from Montreal. But hopefully we'll do stuff in New Jersey. The New Jersey goaltending situation has been absolute, just a mess this year, right? Nico Daws comes in. He's not playing to the potential he should be. I mean, all I've seen of him, seen the Flames play him twice. Got pulled both times after, I believe, allowing 3 goals put into me. No, allowing 4 goals, or 3 or 4 goals in those games. But yeah, just not a little bit disappointing to see him go from Montreal, but still, whatever, I guess. And then the Rangers acquired Tyler Mott for a fourth from the Canucks. Tyler Mott's a pretty solid guy. I've seen a bunch of Tyler deals. He pulled them between the legs earlier. Just Rangers building up, I would say, and that's the way this fits into my mind here. The Oilers and Flyers make a deal. The Edmonton Oilers acquire forward Derek Brassard with 50% salary retention, and the Flyers acquire a 2023 fourth-round pick. Just to add here, speaking of the Oilers with the Brett Kulak trade, I do believe they did retain 50% on Kulak. I don't know if I mentioned that or put that on, if I did have that on the screen here, but they did retain 50% of Kulak's salary, the Montreal Canadiens. So just to put that out there. Look at the Brassard trade. Interesting thing with Derek Brassard is I was watching the Oilers Avalanche game earlier, and they actually showed a statistic where Derek Brassard has played with 10 different NHL teams, and that's tied for second with a bunch of other players after Mike Sillinger, whose son Cole Sillinger got drafted, who's first with 12 different teams played with. That's 10 teams. That's pretty intense. I want to see how many years he's played in the National Hockey League. So Derek Brassard, right? Blue Jackets, Rangers, Senators, Penguins, Panthers, Avalanche, Isles, Coyotes, Flyers, and now he's on the Oilers. So pretty interesting there. He was drafted in 2006, so he is maybe nearing that retirement, but pretty solid. Oh, a lot of trades here too. So yeah, I do think the Oilers have come out with the win here. Maybe not the most skilled or offensive guy, but I think he can contribute to the Oilers team at a depth center for that lineup, and I think the Oilers win this deal. But again, who knows what happens there. Considering overall for the Oilers, considering the amount of depth they have acquired, I think it's a little, not a little, but I think it's not enough as to what they need. They have some really good players in the top six. Obviously, McNiven and Draisaitl. That the team's built around those two guys, but they don't have any of the depth and that secondary scoring. They're adding Brassard, but I just don't think that's enough for them. But still, the Oilers do win this deal, considering that they're still getting something for that category. And now Flames trade, something which I think I might have skipped over the Cali Yarncrow deal, which we'll get to maybe a little bit just in a second here. But the Calgary Flames get forward Ryan Carpenter from the Blackhawks for a 5th round pick, a 2024 5th round pick. And this kind of brings in multiple elements of this one, which was earlier on the trade deadline day, the Flames would send Brad Richardson down on waivers and he would get picked up by Vancouver. I was kind of bummed, which I think I was maybe a little bit too bummed about it. The fact that Brad Richardson was playing pretty good in Calgary. He was playing fine in Calgary. And see him kind of get sent down on waivers. And I think he was being sent down on waivers based on the fact just to open up some cap space for the Flames to make a trade. And as he gets sent down, maybe it was anticipated they would get back, maybe it wasn't. I would like to think that that they didn't anticipate him getting picked up, but he did. And he went there, and then basically the Flames go ahead and get Ryan Carpenter. And I'm kind of disappointed because that they just kind of traded basically a 5th and Brad Richardson for Ryan Carpenter. Sort of disappointed. Part of that disappointment sort of came from as the trade deadline just finished. And as the trade deadline is just sort of finishing up, and this is the thing they do, and kind of they don't make any other big trades. Sure, they might have been in talks for Chiarot and Hampus Lindholm. Did they get them? No. It's a little bit disappointing, but I think now, kind of looking back at it, Ryan Carpenter is quite a bit younger than Brad Richardson. Makes sense for Richardson to go in. Ryan Carpenter, I think, overall has a better skill set and and a little bit more playoff experience, maybe. So maybe I think the Flames did kind of get an advantage. And Ryan Carpenter, looking forward to seeing him play in Calgary. He wasn't playing against Sharks. I don't know if it's because he's been able to get to Calgary yet or not, but we'll see. I hope to see him in action very soon. So it's an interesting move there. Another interesting thing about Ryan Carpenter, I was reading a article about him saying that actually when the trade deadline kind of finished, he thought he was, all right, I'm staying in Chicago, and then he found out because there was a lot of trades happening last minute, and they got reported after the deadline. They had been obviously done before the deadline, but got reported afterwards. As those trades are being mentioned, Carpenter thought that he wasn't going to get traded, and then as he's packing to go on a road trip with the Blackhawks, I believe, he realized he's been traded, and pretty interesting. He told his son that he went to the Flames, and his son kind of just said, like, red in response to that. Is a pretty cool moment. I was kind of like, hey, that's cool. And he said he's pretty happy to be in Calgary as well. So, let's see. And he's also talking about buying into the Sutter system, which is exactly how it is. So, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Ryan Carpenter. Before we get to that, I'm going to open the Cal Yarncrow deal. For some reason, I don't have that one open on my screen. So just finding where I've put just looking around for that one. The exact information, there it is. Nope. Haven't been able to find it here. Right. So these are looking at the information here. So, the Calgary Flames get forward Cali Yarncrow. I can't call it Yarncrow. It's Cali Yarncrow from the Seattle Kraken in exchange for a 20. Sorry. Statistics just closed up here on me here. So, yep. A second round pick in 2022, third round pick in 2023, and a seventh round pick in 2024. I do believe I was checking on Twitter, and Elliot Friedman did report that seventh round pick was for the Kraken to retain 50% of Yarncrow's salary. I think first thought is that this is a bit of an overpay for Jarnkrok. He's a very versatile guy, can play bottoms. He's playing in the bottom, playing currently third line center for the Flames. But I think the Flames could have maybe got him a little bit cheaper. Um, obviously that's debatable, but maybe I don't know. I kind of just feel like this could have been this a little bit of an overpay. He's on $2 million contract, which is $1 million for the Flames. It's a UFA in this upcoming off season. But again, it's a little bit disappointed. Disappointed to see this much stuff go away from him. But here's the thing: he's cousins with Elias Lindholm, which is all I knew before he came. And then he came here, and then I found out actually more stuff that he's from Gävle, Sweden, where he grew up with Elias Lindholm. I mean, him and Lindholm are really, really close. And he also grew up with another guy who's on the Flames from Gävle, Jacob Markstrom, which was awesome as well, because and the two of them were almost best friends, and they always joked about playing together in the NHL, and they never really thought it would happen, and it just happened with the Flames, which is awesome. I think that's a really, really, legitimately a really big win for the Calgary Flames. In that sense, because there's connections. They had connections with the Toffoli Trade. Now they have connections with the Jarnkrok Trade as well. So good stuff for the Calgary Flames to be able to make that trade here and acquire him. So, yeah, that is definitely some pretty good stuff for the Calgary Flames. So yeah, moving on to the next one. The Dallas Stars get forward Vladislav Nemestnikov in exchange for fourth round 2024 fourth that they sent to the Detroit Red Wings. Just wondering, Vladislav Nemestnikov, he's been through a bunch of teams in the previous years of late. So I think that it's interesting for him to go to the Dallas Stars. Stars is getting him, I guess, obviously building for a run. That's what all these trades are about. But I think the Stars do win this deal, considering they're getting somewhat of an okay forward. But yeah, a fourth round pick, that does make sense for both teams to make that trade here. And obviously, briefly touched on the McNiven trade earlier. So the Flames acquire future considerations in exchange for Michael McNiven, send him to the Senators. So basically, McNiven is going to stop here, stays here for a couple of weeks, and then goes back east to Ottawa. Interesting, I guess. Part of me wishes that the Flames maybe got a 7th out of it to say, hey, look at that, popped out a 7th out of midair. Kind of my thoughts. But again, doesn't really affect me. Obviously, the Flames don't need McNiven, so that's where we sit. Next trade here. The Tampa Bay Lightning acquire forward Riley Nash for future considerations from the Coyotes. Lightning just, I guess, getting another good player there. Not many thoughts on this one. Lightning get a guy for free. I think they win this trade. Another one between two guys that I really don't really know anything about. Los Angeles Kings get defenseman Nelson Nogier. I don't know how to pronounce that. Hope I'm saying it right. While the Jets get defenseman Marcus Phillips. Not much to think about this in defense trade. I do believe these are both guys in the AHL. Just to look it up here for a sec to get an idea of it. Nelson Nogier, yeah. So with the Manitoba Moose, played 25 games, had 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists. Only one has played a game with the Reign here. And to see what Marcus Phillips. So yeah, he's currently playing with the Manitoba Moose. In the Reign, he had 5 points. So it makes sense. Back and forth, I guess, just 1-for-1 trade. Don't have too many thoughts on it. So another small trade, the Tampa Bay Lightning acquire goaltender Alexei Melnichuk, and the Sharks acquire forward Antoine Morand. 1-for-1 trade. Don't have too many thoughts on this. Don't really know much about either of these goaltenders. It just, I guess, makes sense. Makes sense to these teams. It kind of makes sense to me, I guess. This is another one of the big ones. A little bit disappointed to see this one happen because I was hoping Raquel would land in Calgary. The Pittsburgh Penguins acquire forward Rickard Raquel in exchange, and they send it over to the Ducks. Forward Zach Aston Reese, forward Dominic Simone, goaltender Kalle Klang, not sure to say that, 2022, I hope I'm pronouncing that right though. This one's an interesting one considering that I so badly wanted Rickard Rakell to come to the Calgary Flames. I thought he was a pretty good forward, could be really solid on the third line even, anywhere in the mid six. So disappointed to see him get traded here to the Penguins, but happy for the Penguins. Again, building up for that run. I think Rickard Rakell would be solid in their top six in Pittsburgh. Really good acquisition for the Penguins. But they send over Zach Aston Reese and Dominic Simone. Zach Aston Reese, I think he's an okay player. Not the best, but I think he could be a pretty good, just maybe a solid player for the next couple of years for the Ducks. Dominic Simone, I don't know what to expect from him. And that solely comes from the fact that he played pretty okay in Pittsburgh before signing with Calgary and doing absolutely nothing. In Calgary, I had expectations. I was kind of excited to see him come on, and I used to cheer for the Pens more than I do nowadays. And I was like, "Hey, look, that we got a Pen on the team, Penguin on the team, our former Penguin." And he does absolutely nothing, and he kind of we send him on a resort. I think we don't sign him, and he goes back to Pittsburgh and starts playing okay again, like the same kind of level he was at. So I don't know what to expect from him. He could either play the same he's been playing in Pittsburgh, or he could kind of just do nothing. So I'll put it, goaltender Cody Clank. I don't know much about him. See here, Pittsburgh. She's playing in Europe currently. Yeah, with the Rögle Ängelholm team. Goals against, there's okay numbers here. Currently sits at 2.28 goals against and 915 save percentage. So interesting numbers here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So next one up here, I think the Pens do win this deal with Rickard Rakell. Send a couple of mid-sixer depth forwards, prospect goalie in a second. I think the Penguins do win this deal for sure here. And the Kraken acquire Victor Rask in exchange for future considerations. Interesting one. I wouldn't have anticipated the Wild to trade Victor Rask over. I thought they kind of liked him bottom six, but I haven't seen him play much for them. I don't recall him too much from any of the games I've seen from the Wild this year, so maybe a worth the deal, but pretty good deal here again for free. If you're getting someone for free, I think that's a win for the Kraken. The Evgeny Dadonov trade, again, this is a trade for the contract of Ryan Kesler. So the Anaheim Ducks acquire forward Evgeny Dadonov, a 2023 second-round pick, or a 2024 second-round pick. So basically, 2023 or 24 second, one or the other. And then meanwhile, Golden Knights acquired defenseman John Moore, who came to Anaheim as a part of the Hampus Lindholm trade, and along with forward Ryan Kesler's retired contract. Ryan Kesler's on a $6 million something deal. But the logistics I see behind this trade is that Evgeny Dadonov's contract ends in 2023. I believe he's on a $5 million deal. And Vegas Golden Knights have cap problems. That seems like a common theme across the NHL these days. And with these cap problems, comes the fact that they need to get rid of Evgeny Dadonov, so they have cap space at the 2022 offseason. So they take on Ryan Kesler's contract, whose retired contract does end this offseason. And therefore, that kind of $5 million does go. They do get John Moore in exchange, and they also give up. Vegas Golden also give up a second, so it's a pretty big win for the Anaheim Ducks. I think they're giving up a pretty big contract. They're going to get Evgeny Dadonov, a little bit more experienced guy, but good on a young team, along with a second-round pick. Come to the final deal, and arguably the most complicated and mind-boggling trade of this entire deadline. Took me a little bit of time to kind of understand this one. Three-way trade. And I think a bunch of stuff did happen where sort of Max Domi with 50% retention went to Florida, where they sent him with 25% retention to Columbus. All that complicated up, but it kind of just ends up with the Hurricanes acquire forward Max Domi with 50% salary retention from Columbus, plus 25% salary retention from Florida, along with defenseman Tyler Inamoto. The Columbus Blue Jackets acquire defenseman Aiden Hreshuk, and the Florida Panthers acquire forward Igor Korshkov and a 2022 sixth-round pick. I believe that was for the retention, but bunch of interesting stuff that goes down. The main guy here is Max Domi that goes to Carolina. a lot of talk about the Carolina Hurricanes not making a single move at the deadline, considering how massive of a contender they are. Obviously, top 5 contender for the Cup, and they don't make any moves, while there's Florida making moves. Tampa making some moves. A lot of moves, but small ones. Colorado making moves, right? All those teams making moves, and then the Hurricanes only making this one, but they do get Max Domi, and to see how Max Domi pans out in Carolina, we don't know. I would have no idea, because played pretty solid in, where was he? Montreal, I believe. Pretty solid in Montreal. At the same time, kind of fell off in Columbus. I don't know where he's going to land in Carolina. How's he going to play in Carolina? But again, adds good depth piece for that roster. And I do believe that brings us to the end of the trades that have acquired at the trade deadline. So, about what this trade deadline means for the Calgary Flames. As a whole, sort of, I think this is a trade deadline where Flames did some good stuff with acquiring Toffoli, got Jarnkrok, got Carpenter, but I think they didn't do enough. And it sort of looks at the fact that, look at Florida. They're big competitors, but so are we. And what Florida did, went out and got Giroux, got Chiarot, got big names. Those two are the big names, and compared to Toffoli, Jarnkrok, and Carpenter, I think they got bigger names. Look at Colorado. Probably the biggest team that we're going to have to face, and the biggest team, the best team in the league. Manson, Cogliano, Sturm. They were constantly making trades, even if they were kind of small. Deals were going down for that team, and at the end of the day, right, I mentioned Cogliano, Arturi Lehkonen. They made some pretty massive trades, and the Flames kind of compared to them didn't do as much, and I think it's a little bit disappointing. What the Flames did was great, but I felt like that the Flames, instead of trading for a depth guy like Carpenter, they needed to get a solid defenseman or a solid forward, such as Rickard Rakell, as a forward or defense, Hampus Lindholm. That would have been pretty solid, I think, and that would have really just solidified the roster. Be like, all right, good, you've got a good roster going. But at the same time, you can't really complain. Toffoli, what an acquisition! That guy's gonna be massive contributor for the Calgary Flames going forward. I'm sorry if I sound a little bit tired here. I'm recording this at 1:30 in the morning. Sorry if I sound a little bit tired right now doing this. I will try to record a little bit more during the day if I'm able to. Kind of just go back to that. The Flames did some stuff, but for me, it was always like the Flames didn't even need to go ahead and make the Jarnkrok deal. They could have just gone to someone like JT Miller, and that didn't happen. And then I think there were also talks about Brock Besser on Twitter. Some people on Twitter were spreading rumors, like just trying to act like real analysts and trying to say that, Brock Besser to Calgary for all this crap. No, those are rumors. Those weren't true. Not from verified accounts on Twitter. But following that, there was still a little bit of that talk that Besser to Calgary, maybe. Besser is one of the top teams. Besser is one of the top teams for Besser to go to is Calgary right now. And I was like, well, Besser would work. And I also did read somewhere that Peltier was the discussion. I didn't want to see him go. I'm glad he didn't go. At the end of the day, if it meant protecting some guy like Peltier, maybe Coronado, maybe Ruzicka, then it's fine if we don't get Brock Besser. But JT Miller, guy that was on my mind, basically. But didn't do that. At the end of the day, I'm happy. The Flames, this is a good Flames roster, but maybe one more guy would have been nice here. And how do we compare to the rest of the league? Well, look, the Avalanche just get stronger. The Panthers just get stronger. The Hurricanes do get stronger with the Max Domi trade, but maybe not as strong. And now just kind of see how it kind of ranks up. If I had to see top 5 Cup contending teams, Avalanche, Panthers, I think those are 2 top contenders. I would also say the Hurricanes are still there. Maybe not as prominent. Lightning. And I'm going to put the last team in. You might disagree with me, but it's Calgary. I have that Flames bias. I'm not going to I'm not gonna hide that. I'm biased to the Calgary Flames, obviously. That's my team, but I think the Flames are legitimate competitors. Why do I say this? They may not have the best roster compared to some of these other teams that I mentioned, but they have that playoff mentality. They've been playing like that all year, and sometimes it just doesn't feel that way watching them. But that's their mentality. It's the entire teams. Everyone's bought into the Sutter style of play, and Sutter has a good track record in the playoffs. These aren't the 2018 2019 Calgary Flames team. Just going like, hey, top team in the West, no big, and then losing 5 to the Avalanche. We're just, oh gosh, that's just disappointing. But, well. Oh, more than, but this is a different team. This is a team that made trades that didn't like. We are ready. We have that. We have the right mentality, the right style of play. We have that structure, and I think the structure really helps us here. What does that do? Against some of these teams that I mentioned, look, I have no idea. I think the Flames have a legitimate chance at taking down the Avalanche. Look, and I'm going to be honest, I think it's going to be Flames-Avs conference finals for the West. There's no real question about that. What happens in the East, there's a little bit more volatility. But just looking at the West, the Calgary specifically, look, the Avalanche made some moves. The Flames maybe didn't make comparable moves. But if Flames-Avs, the Flames have a legitimate chance of beating the Avs. The Avs also have just as much of a legitimate chance at beating the Calgary Flames in that series. So, again, massive stuff. But I think if the Flames did make some of the deals they made, especially the Toffoli deal, and even the Yarncrow deal, I suppose, maybe the Flames wouldn't even be where they're at in that. Then the Flames would just wither against a team like the Avalanche who have so much skill up and down the lineup. But I think that's kind of how it stacks up. In the East, for the top teams, it's going to be between Tampa Bay, Florida, and Carolina. Those are kind of going to be the top teams fighting for it. If there's going to be a fourth team, I say just look up, see the latest NHL standings here. So yeah, let's look at the divisional standings here. It's Carolina, obviously, Florida, Tampa. Toronto's there in the mix, maybe, but I don't see them making it out of the first round. Right? They might play Tampa, which is, they're not making it. They're really not doing it. There's also Pittsburgh in the mix, I think, because it might be Pittsburgh, New York in the first round, and I think that's pretty possible because I think it's going to be Pittsburgh, New York in the first round there in the East, and therefore, I don't know who's going to win. I think the Rangers are going to come out on top in the first round, and so I think the Rangers are going to kind of be that fourth team to be in that mix for potentially being a top team. But I think it's going to be between Tampa, Carolina, and Florida. Now, when it comes to them, looking at the moves they made, Carolina didn't do what they should have done, in my eyes. They got Max Domi, which is good for them, but they didn't get anything much more than that. And then there's Florida. They have Chiarot. They have Giroux. I feel like I might be missing another trade here. But they're so strong. And I think Florida is definitely better in that sense. Tampa Bay, good team, but I don't think they have it left in them. They're still such a strong team. I would say it's top 5, as I mentioned. Top of the top teams, but I think Florida edges them out as well. And it brings me to the final point. I think it's going to be Florida who wins the East. It's going to be between the Flames and the Avs who wins the West. And, yeah. I'm not going to say the Flames are up. I think the Flames have a legitimate chance, but that's how it stacks up. With this deadline, the New York Rangers are so much stronger, right? The Panthers are so much stronger. The Tampa Bay Lightning are debatable. They're, I think, stronger as well. Flames, Avs. So, yeah, that's just the thoughts I have going into this. And since I kind of come out here, anything with the trade deadline, please let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are about any of the trades and the deadline. If there's a point I made that you agree with or you want to add to, please feel free to share. If there's something you disagree with that I said, please share. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on a certain trade that whatever, or things or the trade deadline in general. So do let me know that. So now let's get to the final segment of today's of the first podcast of the Rockies Hockey Podcast. And we're talking about the last two games for the Calgary Flames that have gone down here. So the first one is the Flames Canucks game, which we'll talk about from sorry, when was this game? I just have to take a look at that. I believe it was the 19th. Yeah, the 19th. So basically speaking, I might even touch on the Sabres game before that happened, but the Canucks Flames game, really solid game. I would say we played Vladar after Markstrom's absolute fail against the Sabres, which I don't even want to get into that. That was one of the most, maybe even the worst play of the Flames here against Tage Thompson. But regardless, we bounced back pretty hard. Again, we lost 7-1 to the Vancouver Canucks. Last time we saw them, it was also in Vancouver. But we come back pretty quickly, Noah Hannafin, and Jarnkrok gets his first point as a Calgary Flame. Just good shot coming in. Then Matthew Tkachuk follows it up with another getting shot. Backlund with the assist there. And then Rasmus Anderson with a beautiful shot. A nice drop pass by Tkachuk. And that was a nice one. Makes it 3-0, right? Lindholm adds to it with a good play. My thought, this one was an interesting one. 31st with your first fall for last Lindholm. That's monumental. That's great for Flames. Just depth scorers. The Flames, I think, are the first team in the league now, as I speak, with 4+ 29 goal scorers. First, with most 29 goal scorers in the league. And one team, that's pretty good. But Lindholm goal was pretty cool, pretty good for this game, because before this, the Canucks pretty good. Branson was out for a 3.5 minute shift, as the Canucks just laid on the pressure for 3.5 minutes on the Flames with the shift. Like, Branson was out there so long, it was pretty stressful to watch. A lot of pressure, and I was just, oh god, what's gonna happen? No. And then we come out of the zone, right? Quick line change. The first line comes out. New first line here with Giroux, Lindholm, and Toffoli out. And Toffoli's kind of falling, kind of makes kind of just sends a pass over as he's falling to Lindholm. And Lindholm with a beautiful shot and just killed all the momentum the Canucks had there. And Giroux adds out on the power play, makes it 5-0. And then Highmore and Besser add 2 goals in about a 10-minute span, which was disappointing because I felt like we sort of had this game, and it's not good to sort of just allow 2 goals that quickly in such a short period of time. It was, I don't think that was very good for the Flames to do there. It was a little bit disappointing to see those 2 go in there at the end. But oh well, a 5-2 win. I think we played a pretty solid game, except for maybe I would say the third period, which was a little bit weak there with allowing the goal from Matthew Highmore and Brock Besser. So that was the game before the trade deadline. I don't have much to say about this one. I think that was a pretty good one. And yeah, also Demko got pulled. A make sense move for Vancouver, I thought. But yeah. And then, oh gosh, one of the bad ones against the San Jose Sharks, where the Calgary Flames, with a 3-1 lead at a point, a 2-0 lead and a 3-1 lead, blow the game in the third to lose 4-3. Blow it in 28 seconds from a goal by Barbanov and Couture. Oh, damn it. Yeah, this is disappointing to say the least. Kind of a bad game. Who do you throw this on? I want to throw a lot of this on. Markstrom, I think, is the guy to blame here for this one. But at the same time, I don't want to put too much on him. Tough game against Buffalo in overtime, and then he's playing so well. You can't just throw him on there, which does hurt a little bit to do that. But really, there isn't really anyone who can blame. I guess, I think everyone on the team did take a little bit of that blame. But regardless of how did the game go? Well, Johnny scores and then Dubé scores really quickly in this game. Right, first 8 minutes in, and it's already 2-0. Good game. And Mark Edward Vlasic adds one afterwards, unassisted. Just a bad giveaway from Sean Monahan on that one. Just send it around the state. He just airmails that to the net. Just like a floats, and the Markstrom really doesn't see that. And just sort of oh, that's in the net. Disappointing. Not one of it, but oh well. Michael Backlund makes it 3-1 with a beautiful DK. And Sharks, I felt like in the first half of this game, so first and then the first half of the second period, a lot of bad giveaways in the zone, and the Flames optimized with the Backlund goal, and I think even the Kachuk goal, I'm sorry, the Dubé goal was scored on one of those plays, one of those kind of bad zone exits by the Sharks, which turned into a giveaway. The Flames would score. Michael Backlund put that one in. Beautiful pass by Giroux and a nice deep by Backlund to finish it. And then Miner finishes one, which is another bad play. Monahan makes another mistake on this one. He ices the puck and then loses the defensive zone draw that follows and then loses it. And I think at this point I was just like, oh, damn it, Monahan. 2 bad plays and 2 goals allowed. And disappointed for him. There's part of me that's just like, oh no, why didn't we trade him at the deadline? There's also part of me that's disappointed. It just feels bad. I really wish he wasn't in this kind of position that he's in. Seen him play so well for the Calgary Flames in years past, and he's done so much for this team. But right now, he's just this season. It's been a disaster for him. In general, but overall, I mean it's that. And then kind of the worst part of the game, a span of 28 seconds in which that bad. I think it was kind of a bad play by Shillington. But was it a bad play by Shillington? I don't remember if that was the Couture goal, the Burbanov goal. Burbanov scores, quick one, just sends one over Markstrom, and I don't know. The Logan Couture, and then Logan Couture scores 28 seconds afterwards. I think it was one of his linemen. I don't remember who put a shot on a goal. Markstrom stopped that, and then Couture got the rebound, and Markstrom kind of went flying for that. Markstrom stopped most of it, and then it just kind of got that with his legs, and then once he stopped that, it was kind of like falling. It was kind of a dive, a little bit of a desperate save. Sort of just trickles into the goal line, into the net, and it's 4-3. Like just a horrible sequence in these 28 seconds. And talking about the goals in Markstrom's overall game, it felt like he wasn't really that clutch on the Couture goal. However, he did make a good initial save, and then good save attempt to get on the rebound. I thought Burbanov save, just not really aware of the play, but again, quick pass front to him. And then the Meyer goal just spins and sends that in short, not short-handed. Oh, what a short side. No. I mean, sharp angle. And just hits Mark, kind of just gets a piece. Mark gets a little bit of it from the back and goes into the net. Just bad goals. I think this was a tough game for Markstrom and the Flames overall. But yeah, disappointing game to say the least. And yeah, but what is there to do? There isn't much to do here. So disappointing game, and it's the loss of the lead. And maybe this happened once, but this isn't the first time we've blown a 3-1 lead against the Sharks. Remember back a while ago, we were up 3-1, and then we just blow it. Eric Carlson gets a breakaway goal, and then it's 3-2, and then 3-3, and then Tomas Hertl got a hat-trick in that game. One of those, it just felt like, oh my gosh, that same thing happened again here, except it felt like the Flames at least had a good enough pushback after going down. And I feel like the last few games here, right, there is the Sharks one. Just to look at the Flame schedule here, right? The Sharks game, but the Connect game, the Sabres, Devils, like just kind of going back maybe up to the Caps game, right? The Capitals game where we lost 5-4. It just felt like sloppy efforts. We weren't putting in 100% all of these games. The Capitals game, obviously one of the sloppiest games there. We're tired, obviously. There is that as well. Lightning game, that's a full 100% game. Johnny gets the hat trick. Johnny Gaudreau gets the hat trick on that one. And then the Flames went through the Red Wings. This one felt like a little bit of a tough one, but okay. The Avs, we lose 3-0. This one was fine, considering how taxing the schedule had been. But then you get to the Devils game. Just some mistakes, some plays. It felt like we weren't giving our 100% effort. Same with the Sabres. Just didn't feel like we were putting in our 100%. The Canucks game, what a start, right? 3-0 lead after the end of the first. We went out 5-0 later point, and it just felt like we finished that game with maybe putting in less than 100% effort. The Sharks game, another great start. I would put 100% effort into the start, but then after that, it just gets sloppier and sloppier, and we're down, right? Just a bad sequence, but still, bad span of 28 seconds to go down by a goal, being up from a goal to being down by a goal, but again, not 100% effort. Not putting that 100% effort into the game. Now to look forward ahead of the schedule. So, upcoming Friday, 25th, there's the game against the Yotes. They're coming to Calgary, and then after that, Saturday, so the second game of a back-to-back, obviously another back-to-back, the Oilers come to town, and then it's I believe it's the 29th. So we get a 2-day break out of the back-to-back. It's the Avalanche. We'll be well rested for that one. And then it kind of goes on. But those are the next few games. Coyotes should be a walk. Now, question is who starts. And when it comes to the starter, another thing I think you start Vladar for the Coyotes game. And heck, you start Vladar for the Coyotes game. There's not really a question about that. Markstrom needs a mental break. That Sabres game, such a bad game, broke me to see that entire play go down. It was like, oh my god. And then every time Markstrom kind of skates out of the crease to play the puck, I'm like, oh no, my gosh. I'm like, my heart rate doubles for like that one moment. And then he makes a good play. It's like, never mind. But yeah. Coyotes, I think it's Vladar. Oilers, definitely Markstrom starts that one. And then coming to the Avalanche, you start Markstrom for that one. But I would say as we kind of head down the stretch, there aren't too many games left here, right? There's only, I believe, 19 games left, and we're heading into the playoffs. That's that for just the overall thoughts on the recent games. There aren't too many other thoughts to be had here as we finish off the podcast. Those was the main agenda, was to cover the trade deadline. Again, thank you so much for taking the time, nearly 2 hours right now, to take that time out of your day, wherever you're doing, maybe maybe in the car, maybe just listening to this at any time. Thank you so much for taking the time to take your time and listen to the podcast, listen to my thoughts, and listen to the first episode ever of the Rockies Hockey Podcast. So glad that I was able to have you here. I hope you do return for the second episode. I don't know exactly when that will be. Maybe in a week or so. But thanks so much for listening and taking the time to listen. I hope to see you very soon and have a good rest of your day or your night, wherever you're listening to this right now. Any other thoughts you do have based on the trade deadline, where the league sits, anything you would maybe like me to cover or talk about in the next podcast episode, maybe just related to the Flames or anything else in the league. If you want me to talk about it, or if you want to have any other thoughts, please do share them. I would love to hear them and talk about, and even if there's anything you want me to talk about, any specifics, please do. I would love to take a look at that. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you very, very soon.